x is. Because when you say x and not x, I can conclude right away and say it is false. Do we have a situation like that here? Yep, go ahead.
I was going to say, if that's the case, then we can eliminate line 5 and 6. It's going to be false anyways.
We are not eliminating anything. We are still doing things the same way we do. Okay, because this is just false. The precondition of line 6 is false. That's an indication that it is a dead branch.
So it wouldn't be tech, you'd never get there in the first place.
That is correct. If the precondition of a statement is false, it means you cannot get there.
Well, I'm saying like you would never even get to that point.
That's the whole point, though.
Right. Because remember what a precondition is? The precondition is saying, if I ever get here, what is guaranteed at that point? This is saying, if I ever get to line 6, it has to be false, which means we'll never get there. Okay, so this is significant because this gives you the tool to find out what branches in a multi-branch conditional statement is a dead branch. Okay, now a dead branch is not necessarily a bug. It is not necessarily something that would cause your program to crash, but it is something that you really should look into. Because if it is a dead branch, why is it there to begin with? Okay. Now, no sane programmer will ever program in a dead branch intentionally. So how do dead branches, end up being there?
Programs get updated, rewritten, and then they sort of negate half the code.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly right. Because you might start the entire conditional statement as if, then, and if. Okay, not even an else. And then later on, you found out, oh, okay, there are other cases that I have to handle differently. So you start to say else, and then you find out, oh, there are other specific cases that I have to handle too. Then it becomes multi-branch, and before you know it, you have like 5 or 6, conditions in the multi-branch conditional statement. And remember, these 5 or 6 conditions can be put in by different programmers, different developers. Okay, each person is only focusing on that one change that they have to make to the entire program, not aware of why there are other conditions already in the multi-branch conditional statement. Well, it's tax season. Think of the tax code. Do we have multi-branch conditional statements when we have to evaluate how to deal with our taxes?
Yeah.
Are those conditions complicated?
Yes.
Is it possible that someone may accidentally end up with a multi-branch conditional statement with a dead branch? Absolutely. Okay, so that's why we end up with dead branches. It's because the program keeps getting updated by different people, and the conditions are complicated enough that it is not obvious that there's a dead branch. Okay, so are we doing okay in this case? We're doing okay? All right. So it's time to move on to the dreaded loop. Okay, before we move on, I'm going to save the file first, so this way I have an electronic copy of it. All right. So I will save even the picture. Actually, the purpose that I've saved this picture is for myself, so I can actually include it on the website. So next time I don't have to draw that again. I might make it look better, but that's gonna happen.
Tablet at home?
Hmm?
Use your tablet at home?
Yeah. And I'll call this pre-post for conditional statements. Okay. And then I'll save this one too, but we are not done with the text document yet. Some more stuff. That's just a text file, nothing really fancy. All right, so next, let's go ahead and analyze something that is a little bit more tricky. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a look at a loop. So we'll do the same thing as we did a little bit earlier. I'll draw a picture using, what was it, Inkscape. I think the good thing about me using this tool to draw a picture is it gives you guys time to kind of take a breather because it takes me a little bit of time to draw that instead of just slapping the picture on the screen and go start to talk about it. So this gives you a little bit of breathing room. When I was in college, I know how many of you hate this kind of talk about the talking like when I was in college, da 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 da, right? I still remember the Dana Carvey skit in Saturday Night Live. You guys remember that? Dana Carvey, he would say, "When I was a kid," and then talk about all the things. Some of you watch Saturday Night Live when he was on, and I think he's great. What was the other one? Dana Carvey and when they were doing the Hans and Franz skit, who was the other one? Dana Carvey was one, and then what is the other one? Mike Myers, that's it. Mike Myers and Dana Carvey. I'm Hans and I'm Franz, and we're here to pump you up.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's just hilarious. Those two. All right, so let's draw a loop here. Okay, so I will try to draw a loop. Operation here. Delete. So here's a branch back. Okay, I see. Okay, do it like this. This is the operation. And it goes back to the earlier point of the loop. Okay, this is actually pretty good compared to the previous one. Go. All right, so wrong tool. Nope, it's the right tool. And then we have a way to get all the way out. Okay, so here's the this is the branch. This is the branch here. This is where we have to make a decision to say, are we going for another iteration? Or are we getting out? Not quite the same shape that I usually do it in, but close enough. And here is a question, condition to ask, question, and we'll just call it C again. C is once again a condition that can either be true or false. This is the branch for true, and this is the branch of false. Yay. All right. And then we have a statement. Okay, this is the statement here. So let's label that STFT. And this time there's only one statement, so I don't have to number that. Next, we'll actually write the code here. Line 1 is while C do the following. Line 2, whatever we want to do when in one iteration, which is our statement. Line 3 is and while. That's it. Wow, I actually did it pretty okay, actually. Okay, so here, so we have to do the analysis just like before. Several parts of this is pretty easy. This part here, how do we call this? It's the precondition of the entire loop. So is there a way to call this using the line numbers? Pre1, all right. So it is just pre1 here, okay? Because pre1 is referring to what we know before the entire loop, okay? So that's just pre1. We'll do the other one, the other easy one. Let's talk about this one. By the time we get out of the entire loop, what is the proper way to name that? Post 3. Yep, that is absolutely correct. Post 3. All right. Cool. All right, so those two we know how to label. What about this part here? This is getting a little bit tricky because I didn't tell you what statement is. So without knowing what statement is, can we still give it a name, a label, like post something? Hint, hint. Not post 1, this is post 2, okay, because this is a single it's a one-way street, so it can only go this way. Okay, let me just re-emphasize. This is a one-way street, so we'll just go for an arrow here. Right click, go to fill and stroke. Stroke. Give it an and marker. That's not what I had in mind. Let's do. Oh, I get it. It's the wrong side. So I'm going to use. Get the wrong side.
There it was.
Oh.
You had it. You had it when you was up to the first one. It's going the wrong direction. Go to the top one. The one with the last one, not this one. Go the other one. Go the other direction. Click out this one. Goes the one you was at.
Okay.
That one. There it is. Math. Arrow 2. It's right there.
Arrow
Down,
2.
down.
This one?
Down. Keep going. It's right there. You're not at it again. You lost it to the other one.
Ah, okay. I forgot how I drew the lines. Okay, let's delete
That's
it.
pretty cool lines.
Hmm?
That's pretty cool.
Okay. So I know this end is the end. So end marker. We'll go to. Yeah, there we go. That works. It's a small arrow. Okay, but I think that one single arrow is enough to clear up, all the other directions. Okay, so getting back to this little point here, how do we label this? It is known as post 2. Okay, it is whatever is true after line 2 executes. Okay, good enough. Good enough for me. Okay, so let me pass the row sheet. All right, the rest of it is a mess, okay? It's a mess because it's a loop, okay? Because things can go back, which means if you look at the precondition of this part here, okay, so let me just kind of circle the part that I'm interested in. If you just look at this part here, it's a little bit complicated, okay? It's a little bit complicated because one thing we know for sure is C has to be true. Okay, that part we know for sure because we made a decision to come here instead of getting out of the loop because C is true. So let me just go ahead and start to talk about that part. Okay, so I'll start here. I can move it out later when it becomes complicated. So we know C has to be true. What else has to be true as well? Or what else can be true at this point? Post 2, okay, very good, okay. But I'm going to put post 2 in parentheses because there's one other thing that can also be true at this point. Now post 2 can be true because we can come back and this is my second iteration already. In other words, I got to this point by going through the statement once already, coming back through the loop and then end up at the same place. And that's why post 2 can be true at this point. But there's one more thing that can be true as well. What is it?
Pre-1.
Pre-1, exactly. If this is the first iteration,